3 months pregnant? So what? Avery's husband's voice echoed throughout the room. Mother is standing there, why are you sitting down? Avery froze. Not from pain, but from shock. She had thought he was just tired. Just stressed. But behind that command, there was a more sinister intention hidden. She didn't know yet that her husband and mother-in-law were advancing a far more terrifying plan. That morning too, Avery was tormented by severe morning sickness. As she washed her face at the sink, she stared at her pale reflection in the mirror. Joy for the new life growing in her womb intertwined complexly with anxiety about her poor health. While preparing chamomile tea in the kitchen, the doorbell chimed. Looking at the clock, it was 10 a.m. A visitor at that hour was unusual. Oh, Vivian. Opening the door, there stood her husband Blake's mother, Vivian, with perfectly styled hair and an elegant suit. Her posture was remarkably straight for 58, and her sharp gaze moved quickly from Avery's face to her feet, as if appraising her. Avery, you look tired. How are you feeling? Vivian's voice was superficially gentle, but there was something probing in its tone. Your complexion looks poor. Are you getting proper nutrition? Thank you for asking. I've had little appetite due to morning sickness. Avery answered apologetically while guiding Vivian to the living room. Yes, early pregnancy is tough, Vivian said, settling onto the sofa while surveying the room. But in my day, we managed household duties perfectly even during pregnancy. Health management was personal responsibility. There was a faint note of criticism in those words. Avery felt uncomfortable but told herself it was due to pregnancy mood swings. I'll make some tea. Behind Avery, as she headed to the kitchen, came the sound of Vivian standing up. Turning back, she saw her mother-in-law opening the refrigerator without permission, checking its contents. If you need something. Oh, sorry. Just having a look. Vivian smiled, but her eyes showed no trace of apology. I was worried about nutritional balance. You must manage properly for the baby's sake. While Avery prepared tea, Vivian continued inspecting the house. She opened cupboards to check ingredients, peered into the bathroom, and even opened the bedroom door to look inside. Her behavior like an inspector planted small seeds of discomfort in Avery's chest. Does Blake help with housework? Vivian asked while drinking tea back in the living room. Yes, when he can. Really? Men can't do housework. Women must be capable or households fall apart. Vivian's tone seemed to doubt Avery's abilities. I'm home. Welcome back, Blake. Vivian's voice brightened. I was talking with Avery today. Very meaningful. Avery tried to head to the living room, but the moment she stood up, dizziness struck and she sank back onto the sofa. Wait, Avery. Suddenly Blake's stern voice rang out. Mother is standing. Why are you sitting? Avery turned back in surprise. She couldn't believe her usually gentle husband would speak in such a cold tone. But I'm not feeling well. No excuses. Give your seat to Mother. Blake's expression was colder than she'd ever seen, looking at her as if she were a stranger. Vivian settled onto the sofa with a satisfied smile. Thank you, Blake. You really are a good son. That night, Avery lay in bed alone, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't understand why her husband had suddenly acted that way. Her phone buzzed with a message from her friend Rachel. Are you feeling okay? I'm worried since we haven't talked lately. Is anything wrong? Avery placed her fingers on the keyboard to reply, but Blake leaned over to look at the screen. Who's that from? My friend Rachel. I see. Blake's voice carried a wariness she'd never heard before. Don't talk to outsiders about family matters. During pregnancy, emotions become unstable, so you'll just cause unnecessary worry. But Rachel is my best friend. Just because she's your best friend doesn't mean you can tell her everything. Family problems should be solved within the family. Blake turned his back and fell asleep. In the darkness, Avery replayed the day's events. Her mother-in-law's abnormal prying, her husband's transformation, and she couldn't even contact her friends normally anymore. Something was definitely wrong. But what it was, Avery still couldn't understand. Perhaps her judgment was clouded by pregnancy-related health issues. However, Avery didn't yet know that the small anxiety sprouting in her chest would eventually grow into great fear. The following Tuesday, Avery visited the obstetrics clinic for her regular checkup. Sitting in the waiting room, watching other pregnant women's happy faces, she felt as if she alone was shrouded in heavy clouds. "Avery, thank you for coming." Dr. Patricia Chen looked at the test results with a serious expression. The 45-year-old Asian American doctor was known for her compassion, and Avery trusted her. "Your blood pressure is slightly elevated. And I'm seeing stress reactions as well." Dr. Chen looked at Avery sitting on the examination table with concern. "Has anything changed at home?" Avery hesitated for a moment, wondering if she should mention her mother-in-law, but ultimately shook her head. Speaking to the doctor about anxieties she couldn't yet pinpoint seemed excessive. "Avery, you need rest," Dr. Chen said firmly while writing a medical certificate. "Mental stress is not good for the fetus. Family understanding and cooperation are essential. Show this certificate to your family and get proper rest." Receiving the certificate, Avery felt relieved that her husband and mother-in-law would finally understand. Surely they would listen to the doctor's authoritative words. However, when she showed the certificate to Vivian at home, her mother-in-law glanced at it and sneered. "Doctors always exaggerate, don't they?" Vivian said dismissively while handling the certificate carelessly. "In my day, we worked in the fields even during pregnancy. Modern women are too pampered." When Blake came home, Avery hopefully handed him the certificate. "The doctor says I need to rest." "Is that so?" Blake took the certificate, skimmed its contents, and casually tossed it into a drawer. "But Mother's right, there's probably no need to be so neurotic about it." "But the doctor said." Doctors exaggerate to avoid responsibility. Worrying too much is worse for your health. That night, Avery stood alone in the kitchen, tears falling. Why didn't anyone care about her health? Did they really care about the child in her womb? A few days later, while shopping at the neighborhood supermarket, neighbor Mrs. Johnson approached Avery. "Oh, Avery. You look tired." The kindly woman in her 70s had an awkward expression. "How are you feeling?" "Thank you for asking. I'm getting better little by little." "That's good to hear." Mrs. Johnson continued, choosing her words carefully. "I had a chance to speak with your mother-in-law." Avery's heart leaped. "My mother-in-law?" "Yes, she's very worried about you, it seems." Mrs. Johnson's expression grew even more complicated. She said, "My daughter-in-law has been neglecting housework lately and it's troubling, and she's using pregnancy as an excuse to be lazy." Avery's face was drained of blood. Vivian had been spreading lies about her to the neighbors. "But you're pregnant, aren't you? It's natural that it would be difficult." Mrs. Johnson added sympathetically, but the rumors seemed to have already spread. Returning home, Avery trembled with anger and humiliation. Why would Vivian tell such lies? Why did she need to make her the villain? That night, voices from Blake and Vivian's phone conversation leaked into the hallway. Avery unconsciously stopped and listened. "Yes, Mother's absolutely right." Blake's voice could be heard. "We need to control Avery more. She's been getting uppity lately." "That's right, Blake. You can't let her slack off using pregnancy as an excuse. Vivian's satisfied voice continued. Women get carried away when you spoil them. You have to discipline them strictly. Avery pressed her back against the wall, unable to stop trembling. Her husband was consulting with his mother on how to control and discipline her. As if she were some kind of pet. The following weekend, there was a family gathering. Avery hesitated to attend due to her poor health, but Blake forced her to go. While relatives congratulated her on the pregnancy, Avery overheard her Aunt Susan talking quietly with Vivian. This pregnancy was actually unplanned, wasn't it? Vivian said in a whisper. Young couples don't think things through. Blake is troubled by it. Avery froze. That was a complete lie. They had discussed it for a long time and planned the pregnancy together. Why would Vivian tell such lies to relatives? Aunt Susan wore a sympathetic expression, as if Avery were an irresponsible woman. On the way home, Avery summoned the courage to ask Blake. Why does your mother speak badly of me? What are you talking about? She said to our neighbors and relatives that I'm lazy, and that it was an unplanned pregnancy. Mother's just worried. Don't think too deeply about it. Blake's indifferent attitude completely sank Avery's heart. Her husband was not on her side. Worse yet, he might be working with his mother to corner her. That night, lying in bed, Avery placed her hand on her belly. Feeling the small life moving inside while tears wouldn't stop, she knew she had to protect this child. But how? Now that both her husband and mother-in-law had turned against her, who would help her? In the darkness, Avery felt desperate loneliness. However, she didn't know yet that this was only the beginning. And that the real terror was about to start. On a Friday night in her 5th month of pregnancy, Avery was suddenly struck by severe abdominal pain. Sharp pain stabbed her lower abdomen, cold sweat beading on her forehead. Blake, please, take me to the hospital. But her husband was absorbed in a phone call with his mother, ignoring Avery's cries of pain. Mother, yes. Avery worries too much. As the pain intensified and light bleeding began, Avery called an ambulance with trembling hands. Hearing the siren, Blake finally hung up. What's all the fuss about? I called an ambulance. The baby might be in danger. You're being dramatic. Mother was just saying pregnant women worry too much. At the hospital after emergency transport, Dr. Chen's serious expression heightened Avery's anxiety. Avery, you're experiencing threatened miscarriage. The doctor's words plunged Avery's world into darkness. Immediate bed rest is necessary. Stress is likely the cause. When Avery called Blake from the hospital room, his response was unbelievably cold. Is it really dangerous? Doctors exaggerate things. But Dr. Chen said threatened miscarriage. Mother says the same thing. You worry too much. From the other end of the phone, Vivian's voice could be heard. See? I told you. That girl is so dramatic. In my day. Avery hung up the phone in despair. Her life and her baby's life were in danger, yet neither her husband nor mother-in-law believed her. That night, as Avery lay alone in the hospital room, an unexpected figure appeared. It was her sister-in-law, Meredith. The 35-year-old woman usually cowered in front of her mother, but that night was different. Avery, are you okay? Meredith's eyes were filled with tears. I need to talk to you. I can't stay silent anymore. Meredith. I went through the same thing. Meredith continued with a trembling voice. The real reason for my divorce 3 years ago, it was because of Mother. Avery gasped. When I was pregnant, Mother harassed me every day. You're worthless because you're having a daughter. I don't like you bearing children, she said. Meredith's voice gradually grew stronger. I had a miscarriage because of the stress. But no one believed me. That's terrible. But this time is different. I have evidence. Meredith took out her smartphone. There was a shocking audio recording on it. The plan is proceeding smoothly. Vivian's voice could be heard. Let's drive Avery to mental breakdown and force a miscarriage. Yes, Mother. Blake's voice continued. We don't need kids. I want to divorce Avery too. I want to return to life with just you and me. That's right, Blake. Once that woman is gone, you'll be mine alone again. I'll do anything for that to happen. Considering the inheritance too, having kids would be a nuisance. Exactly. We don't need to divide our wealth. Listening to the recording, Avery felt her blood freeze. Her husband and mother-in-law were conspiring to kill her child. All for the sake of monopolizing the inheritance. Since when? Since they found out about the pregnancy. I've been secretly recording them. Meredith continued through tears. Mother destroyed my life too. But this time I'm going to stop her. Why now? I was scared. But seeing you, I can't let you suffer the same pain I did. The recording continued. Let's also drive away Avery's friends. Vivian's calculating voice said. If we isolate her, she'll be mentally cornered. I hid the medical certificate too. Blake said proudly. I'll make her ignore the doctor's orders. I'm spreading bad rumors in the neighborhood too. Let's destroy her social credibility. Avery couldn't stop trembling. Everything had been planned. All the unease and loneliness she felt, everything was part of their malicious scheme. We were just tools. Meredith murmured sadly. To Mother, women are nothing but obstacles to controlling her son. My baby too. But don't give up. Let's fight this time. Just then, the hospital room door opened. Blake and Vivian appeared. However, their expressions showed no trace of concern. See, it's nothing serious after all. Blake said dismissively. Pregnant women are so dramatic. Vivian sneered. In my day. At that moment, Meredith gripped Avery's hand tightly. The two women exchanged glances, confirming the same resolve in each other. No more running. The time to fight had come. Rain began falling outside the hospital room window. A long stormy night was about to begin. But for the first time, a light of hope was shining in Avery's heart. She wasn't alone. She had Meredith as a strong ally. And most importantly, she had an absolutely non-negotiable reason, protecting the small life in her womb. The battle had only just begun. In the private hospital room, Avery and Meredith began carefully planning their strategy. The recorded evidence was decisive, but to win in court, they needed more proof. Avery vividly remembered the scene when Blake and Vivian left the room earlier. They had exchanged satisfied glances and nodded to each other as if confirming their plan was proceeding smoothly. Well, we're heading home. Blake said perfunctorily. Don't think too dramatically about it. That's right, Avery. Vivian smiled coldly. Pregnant women worry too much. Get discharged soon and do your housework properly. As the sound of their footsteps faded down the hallway, anger welled up in Avery's heart. They possessed neither marital bonds nor empathy for maternal instincts. First, I'll contact my friend Rachel. Avery said, taking out her phone with trembling hands. She's a graphic designer, but very smart and reliable. She'll definitely give good advice. 30 minutes later, Rachel Martinez rushed to the hospital room. The 30-year-old Hispanic woman was Avery's college friend and worked as a creative director at an advertising agency. This is unbelievable, Rachel said, her face flushing with anger as she listened to the recording. Avery, this is completely criminal. We need to find a lawyer immediately. But I don't know any lawyers. At Avery's anxious voice, Rachel answered forcefully. Don't worry. I'll contact Nina Williams. She handles legal affairs at my company. She should know family law specialists. Meredith stood up. I'll help too. I want to be free from mother's control. The next day, when Rachel consulted with Nina Williams at her company, she was immediately referred to a specialist. I have a law school classmate, Laura Chen, who specializes in family law. Nina explained helpfully. She's particularly passionate about women's rights advocacy and has extensive experience with cases like this. Let me contact her right away. That evening, Laura visited the hospital. The stern-looking Asian American attorney in her 40s immediately sprang into action after hearing the recording. This is systematic psychological abuse. Civil litigation is possible under the Civil Rights Act, and criminal charges can also be filed. She declared. But to win, we need to collect much more evidence. From the next day, the four women systematically began evidence collection. First, they obtained testimony from Dr. Patricia Chan about the concealment of the medical certificate. I definitely gave you that certificate. The doctor testified indignantly. Hiding it is an act that endangers the patient's life. As a doctor, I absolutely cannot forgive this. Next came neighborhood interviews. Rachel and Meredith divided the work to collect testimony from residents. Mrs. Johnson and many other residents remembered Vivian's slanderous remarks. That woman was always bad-mouthing her daughter-in-law, saying things like, "She's lazy and troublesome. She's slacking off using pregnancy as an excuse." Recently she even said that it's an unplanned pregnancy and she's being a nuisance. The residents' testimony corroborated Vivian's systematic defamation. Meredith also prepared detailed testimony about her past experiences. When I was pregnant, mother said every day, I shouldn't have given birth to a daughter. And that I'm a failure. She continued through tears. I had a miscarriage because of that stress. Even more shocking facts came to light. Laura's investigation revealed that Vivian had systematically eliminated Blake's romantic partners in the past. His high school girlfriend, college sweetheart, romantic partners after he became a working adult, they all broke up due to his mother's interference. Meredith testified. Mother is someone who'll do anything to monopolize her son. Rachel utilized her company connections to obtain crucial testimony from Blake's colleagues. Blake has been saying lately, I wish my wife would miscarry. And I want to live alone with mother. Testified Mike Anderson from the sales department. At first I thought it was a joke, but hearing it repeatedly, I realized he was serious. The evidence was accumulating daily. Text message histories, call records, even bank transaction records, everything pointed to Vivian and Blake's conspiracy. Particularly decisive was Vivian's internet search history discovered by an IT investigator. Pregnant women stress miscarriage. Psychological pressure abortion. And how to harass daughter-in-law. The search history proved her plan wasn't coincidental but meticulously calculated. Furthermore, interviews with relatives revealed Vivian's abnormal love for Blake. Vivian always said, Blake belongs only to me. Testified Blake's Aunt Susan Thompson. Even when he got married, she opposed it by saying, he doesn't need a wife. She was also worried about inheritance. Continued another relative, Robert Davis. She said, if I were to have grandchildren, we'll have to divide the property and Blake's inheritance will decrease. During evidence collection, Avery gained many supporters. Dr. Patricia, neighborhood residents, Blake's colleagues, and most importantly, Meredith, a powerful ally who had suffered the same pain. We're not alone. Meredith gripped Avery's hand. This time, let's free ourselves from mother's control. Meanwhile, Blake and Vivian remained unaware of the changing situation. They still believed Avery was suffering alone. Soon Avery will give up, Vivian said smugly to her son. If she divorces, we can return to life with just the two of us. Yes, Mother. You really are the best, Blake agreed. However, their plan was beginning to go drastically wrong. The prey they thought was weak was actually preparing perfect retaliation alongside powerful allies. The court date was approaching. Avery's heart no longer held fear. Armed with truth, the strongest weapon, she was ready to fight for justice. The baby in her womb moved vigorously, as if sensing its mother's determination. The battle to protect new life was finally about to begin. 3 months after evidence collection, at 8 months pregnant, Avery was holding a final strategy meeting in Laura Chen's office. Now we have all the evidence we need, Laura said as she placed a thick file on the desk. Audio recordings, doctor's testimony, neighbors' testimonies, search histories, and evidence of Meredith's past victimization. How are the opposing parties reacting? Avery asked anxiously. Blake and Vivian's lawyers offered a settlement. She smiled wryly. They want to settle for $50,000 in damages. They seem to finally understand the seriousness of the situation. But we won't accept it. Meredith showed strong resolve. We want to reveal the truth properly in court. Avery nodded. To protect women who might suffer the same harm, we must make this case public. 2 months later, though preparing for childbirth, Avery decided to stand in court. On the court date, Avery sat next to lawyer Laura Chen, holding her 2-month-old daughter Sophia. Beside her, Meredith and Rachel provided strong support. On the defendant's side sat Blake and Vivian. Their confident expressions from months ago had vanished, replaced by haggard faces. Blake had already been fired from his company, Vivian isolated in the neighborhood, both finally understanding the gravity of the situation. Judge Williams entered the courtroom and the session was declared open. Lawyer Chen stood and began her opening statement. Your Honor, this case reveals the reality of systematic and malicious psychological abuse. Laura's voice echoed through the courtroom. The defendants mentally cornered the pregnant plaintiff, deliberately attempting to induce miscarriage. Blake and Vivian's lawyer claimed it was merely minor family misunderstandings. But their argument lacked persuasion against the weight of evidence. The first witness was Dr. Patricia Chen. I definitely gave Ms. Avery a medical certificate ordering bed rest. The doctor's testimony was clear. Concealing it and endangering the patient's life is unacceptable. Next, neighborhood residents testified. Defendant Vivian repeatedly spread false information, saying, "My daughter-in-law is lazy and troublesome. And she's slacking off using pregnancy as an excuse." Mrs. Johnson's testimony rang through the courtroom. Then came the decisive moment. Meredith took the witness stand. I am Vivian's daughter. Meredith's voice trembled but was filled with determination. When I was pregnant, my mother subjected me to daily psychological abuse. What kind? Lawyer Chen kindly asked. She kept saying to me, "You shouldn't give birth to a daughter. You're a failure. I hate you for trying to bear grandchildren." Meredith's testimony made even the judge show a stern expression. I had a miscarriage because of that stress and was ultimately driven to divorce. Vivian's face went pale. That's a misunderstanding. She desperately tried to deny, but the next evidence was presented. Here is the decisive evidence. Laura pressed the speaker button and recorded conversation echoed through the courtroom. The plan is proceeding smoothly. Let's drive Avery to mental breakdown and force a miscarriage. Vivian's voice resonated in the courtroom. Yes, Mother. We don't need kids. I want to divorce Avery too. Blake's voice continued. That's right, Blake. Once that woman is gone, you'll be mine alone again. Considering inheritance too, having kids would be a nuisance. Exactly. We don't need to divide our wealth. As the recording continued, Vivian and Blake's expressions turned increasingly desperate. This is wiretapping. Blake squeezed out, but Laura calmly countered. It was legally recorded. Ms. Meredith recorded it as a party to the conversation. More evidence followed. Search histories, colleague testimonies, relative testimonies, everything proved their malice. Cornered, Vivian finally revealed her true nature. Yes. My son belongs only to me. She stood up shouting. I don't need grandchildren. I shouldn't have given birth to a daughter. As Judge Williams called for order, Vivian's outburst continued. That woman stole my son. Blake tearfully apologized to Avery. I'm sorry, Avery. I was wrong. Can't we start over? But Avery's answer was clear. Holding her daughter Sophia, she declared with dignity. My daughter and I don't need you in our lives. The courtroom fell silent. Avery's voice was calm, but her resolve was unwavering. Blake, you were the worst as a husband and father. I will never again trust a man who tried to kill his own child. Judge Williams' verdict was complete victory for Avery. Damages, child support, most of the shared property, and restraining orders were placed against Blake and Vivian. As they left the courtroom, Blake and Vivian walked away with heads down, accompanied by their lawyer. Outside the courthouse, Meredith embraced Avery. We did it. Yes, we're finally free. Rachel also congratulated them both. You were truly brave. On the courthouse steps, Avery gazed at her daughter Sophia. The little girl slept peacefully, as if understanding her mother's victory. The long battle was over. Truth had triumphed, justice had been served. And most importantly, this small life had been protected. A new life was about to begin. 2 years later, in spring. In a small cafe, Avery sat with 2-year-old Sophia on her lap, sipping a warm latte. Outside the window, flowers were blooming in full glory, heralding the arrival of a new season. Mama, pretty. Sophia pointed her small finger at the flowers outside. Seeing that innocent smile, Avery's heart filled with warmth. Yes, very beautiful. Avery answered, gently stroking her daughter's head. The days when she fought to protect this child seemed like ancient history. The cafe door opened and Meredith entered. The 35-year-old sister-in-law had a bright expression, completely different from before. Beside her stood her new boyfriend Tom. Avery, how are you? Meredith called out with a smile. Sophia's gotten so big. You look very happy too, sister-in-law. Avery replied, genuinely pleased. Things are going well with Tom? Yes, thankfully. Meredith smiled shyly. I'm continuing counseling. To truly free myself from mother's control. The two women had made meeting like this a monthly habit. As people who had experienced the same suffering, it was precious time supporting each other. I got contact from my ex-husband recently. Meredith said with a slightly complicated expression. About Blake and Vivian. Avery's expression clouded slightly. What about? Mother has developed dementia. It's progressing rapidly, and she doesn't even recognize Blake anymore. Meredith showed conflicted emotions. He's caring for her alone, but said while crying that he's at his limit. I see. Avery answered quietly while adjusting her hold on her daughter. What goes around comes around. After that courtroom victory, Blake and Vivian's lives had completely collapsed. Blake was fired from his company, struggled with job hunting, and now works as a temp while caring for his mother. Vivian became completely isolated from the neighborhood and, with dementia's progression, has forgotten even the son she once doted on. But it has nothing to do with us. Avery said clearly. We're moving forward. Just then, the cafe door opened again and a man entered. David. The 35-year-old psychological counselor had met Avery during therapy sessions she attended. Sorry, I'm late. David approached Avery with a gentle smile. The meeting ran long. Papa. Sophia reached out happily. Though not blood-related, David truly loved her daughter and treated her like a real father. Welcome back. Avery kissed his cheek. How was today? A new client came. A woman who suffered psychological abuse at home. David's expression turned serious. I think your experience could really help her. Avery nodded. After the courtroom victory, she had begun supporting women who suffered similar abuse. By sharing her experience, many women gained courage and motivation to take action. A new support group starts next week. Avery reported to Meredith. 5 women are scheduled to participate. That's wonderful. Meredith answered happily. I'll make time to share my story too. By the cafe window, the 4 spent a peaceful afternoon. Sophia ran around energetically, David and Tom played with the child, and Avery and Meredith discussed future plans. On the way home that evening, Avery's phone rang. It was an unknown number, but seeing the displayed name, her expression stiffened momentarily. It was from Blake Thompson. What's wrong? David asked with concern. My ex-husband. Avery answered, staring at the screen. Probably asking for help with his mother's situation. The phone kept ringing. Avery hesitated for a moment but decided to speak with him one last time. Hello? Avery. Blake's voice was exhausted. Thank you for answering. What do you want? Avery's voice was calm. It's about Mother. Her dementia has progressed. She doesn't even recognize me anymore. I can't handle it alone. Blake's voice trembled. Please, even just a little help. Blake. Avery quietly interrupted. I have a new life. A loving husband, precious daughter, and fulfilling work. But I haven't forgotten that you betrayed me and tried to kill our child. Avery's voice held not anger but calm resolve. I'm happier now than you could ever have imagined back then. From the other end, Blake's sharp intake of breath could be heard. Are you really happy? His voice shook. Yes. David truly loves me, and Sophia adores him as her dad. I can also help many people through women's support activities. Avery continued peacefully. What you and Vivian did to me ultimately made me stronger and happier. That's... Blake's voice cut off. The time you conspired with your mother to torment me was only a brief period in my life. But for you, it determined everything about your existence. Avery, please. Blake desperately pleaded. Goodbye, Blake. This is the last time we'll speak. Avery quietly hung up and immediately blocked the number. Are you okay? David asked worriedly. Yes, completely fine. Avery smiled. If anything, I reconfirmed how happy I am. At home, Avery bathed her daughter, shared dinner together, and read picture books. It was ordinary but filled with love. After Sophia fell asleep, Avery and David relaxed in the living room. When I spoke with him today, Avery said quietly. He asked for help, but I refused. That was the right thing to do. David squeezed her hand. You have the right to live your own life. He was shocked to learn I was happy. Avery smiled somewhat sadly. But that's the reality. I truly am happy. Outside the window, stars sparkled. 2 years from those dark days, Avery had completely gained a new life. The next morning, a letter was slipped under the front door. Seeing the sender's name, Avery hesitated momentarily but ultimately threw the letter in the trash without opening it. It was from Vivian. The past is the past, Avery told herself. We create our own future. While preparing breakfast in the kitchen, Avery felt genuine happiness. Her daughter's laughter, her partner's kindness, her bond with her sister-in-law, and her own strength. Everything was a gift that lay beyond that painful battle. The sun rose, and a new day began. Avery's life was enveloped in light called hope. Together with true happiness that no one could ever take away again.